I never imagined a single coffee cup could unravel a family's dark secret. I can still feel the tremor in my hands, the coolness of the porcelain against my palm. The coffee shop was buzzing, filled with chatter and the clinking of cups, but my world felt silent. It was just me and that cup, sitting there like an innocent bystander as chaos unfolded around it. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I stared at that cup, wondering how it could hold so much weight. My mother had handed it to me, a quaint little mug with a faded flower design, offering it like it was a treasure. It wasn't until I took a sip that I noticed the strange aftertaste, bitter, metallic. I choked, sputtering. "What is this?" Suddenly, the air grew heavy. My brother, Ryan, looked up from his phone, his expression a mix of fear and disbelief. "What did you do, Clara?" he whispered, eyes wide. It felt like a scene lifted from a movie, the type where everyone holds their breath in anticipation. My mind raced back to that family history, the whispers we brushed aside, those odd glances exchanged at family gatherings. Secrets. Secrets that seemed contained, buried under the surface, just waiting for the right moment to erupt. Our father, with his gruff demeanor and relentless work ethic, always spoke of family loyalty. But what loyalty meant to him was a mystery. My mother's smiles were often forced, shadows lingering in her eyes. I knew she held something back. I just had to connect the dots. I set the cup down, trembling. The room felt small, closing in on me as I glanced around. Everything was suddenly muted, faces etched with concern. The coffee shop's chatter faded, replaced by my pounding heart. The smell of roasted beans turned sour in my nostrils. "Clara, are you okay?" Ryan's voice sliced through the silence, thick with worry. The barista, a stranger, lingered too long near our table, looking as if she had herself seen something she shouldn't. "I think there's something wrong with that cup," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes darted toward the back of the shop, where shadows danced flickering beneath dim lights. What was she implying? My stomach churned. I remembered the stories, the old photographs my mother kept tightly tucked away, the family history that felt too twisted, too dark to face. My mind raced even faster now. Was this cup a key? A forgotten memory? Was there something or someone I had yet to uncover? As I stared down into the now cold remnants of coffee, an unsettling feeling crept over me. I knew we were standing on the edge of something monumental. Something was coming. I had to dig deeper, find the truth buried beneath all those smiling faces and brilliant lies. What had my mother hidden all these years? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed blurred into one another, each moment steeped in a heavy fog of uncertainty. It wasn't just the taste of the coffee that haunted me, but the strange connections tumbling in my mind like a cascade of leaves. I felt a desperate urgency to confront my mother, to peel back the layers of her carefully curated life. But the weight of my discovery shrouded me in silence, and fear curled around my tongue, stifling my questions. "Clara, what's wrong?" Ryan asked one evening, as we sat in our dimly lit living room. He had become increasingly worried, and for the first time, his voice carried an edge that made my heart ache. "You haven't been the same since that day." I looked into his eyes, pools of concern mirroring my own trepidation. Part of me wanted to tell him everything, to reveal the unsettling taste, the barista's cryptic warning, and the myriad questions clawing at my insides. But then I hesitated, my fears rooted deep within. Would I burden him with something that could shake the very foundation of our family? Just a lot on my mind, I guess, I replied, forcing a smile that felt like a delicate mask. I could see the shadows of doubt flickering behind his gaze. He didn't believe me, but I couldn't bear to unravel the truth just yet. The next day, I found myself avoiding my mother, retreating deep into my curdled thoughts. She moved around the house with the same grace she always did, preparing meals and folding laundry, her surface calm creating an even greater chasm between us. I caught glimpses of her sitting at the kitchen table, sipping her tea, lost in contemplation, and it hurt like I was on the outside of a glass wall, thrumming in anticipation against something unyielding. "That's it, Clara. You need to talk to her," Ryan insisted one night after dinner, as we cleaned up together. "What's the worst that could happen?" Flashes of anger and resentment slipped into my mind at the thought of confronting the woman who raised me and shielded me from the world. How could I accuse her of keeping secrets? What if I was wrong? That one coffee cup had turned our lives upside down, but what if the truth was more damaging than the lie? Yet, as night fell, a wave of resolve washed over me. The impending storm within could not remain quelled for much longer. With each breath, my determination solidified. I would meet her in the morning, and, trembling or not, I would ask. But the next morning didn't unfold as I'd envisioned. When I entered the kitchen, raw nerves sparking inside me, I found my mother hunched over the kitchen table, tears glistening in her eyes like glass marbles, a piece of paper clutched tightly in her hands. "Mom?" I felt my heart race, dread flooding through me. Had something happened? She looked up, her face a concoction of bewilderment and fear. "Clara, there's something you need to know." Her voice quivered, and a wave of guilt crashed over me. Was it too late for the conversation I had wanted to have? "What is it?" I stepped closer, noticing that the paper trembled like the leaves outside in a fleeting wind. But before she could answer, the doorbell rang, a sharp, jarring sound that sliced through the fragile air in the room. My stomach dropped. Who could it be? As my mother stood frozen, I rushed to the door and opened it. A man stood there, rain-drenched and disheveled, his eyes flaring with an intensity one had never seen before. He looked familiar, but not quite. "Is this the home of Sarah Mitchell?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. "Yes." "Who are you?" I replied, glancing back at my mother. Instinctively, I shielded her from this stranger, fear sparking again within me. His expression shifted, a shroud of pain overtaking his features. "It's about your father. There's something you need to know." Everything within me felt like it cracked, the world tipping on its axis. My mother's eyes widened in horror, and I could feel the atmosphere growing darker, heavier. The secret, the coffee cup. I was about to be swept into an even deeper storm than I had anticipated. In that moment, a chilling revelation flashed through my mind. There was more than just one cup holding the weight of our family's past. What had I truly uncovered? The chaos of that moment churned around me, and I realized too late that I had only just begun to scratch the surface of our turbulent history. As something unsettling began to unfold, a single question hung between us like a storm cloud. What other secrets had my father hidden, and was my family prepared for the truth that was about to unravel? In the hollow space beneath the weight of the man's words, I felt as though I were stretched taut, ready to snap. My heart pounded fiercely against my ribcage, a frantic drum urging me to fall back into the shadows. But the door was already wide open, reality spilling in around me like an unstoppable tide. "Who are you?" I repeated, my voice steadying despite the raging storm in my chest. I needed clarity. I needed strength, if only for the depth of what was unfolding. "I am a friend of your father's," he replied, his face pale and lined with worry. "My name is David. We need to talk, and it's urgent." I glanced back at my mother, desperate for a sign, an explanation, something that might anchor my spiraling thoughts. She stood there, frozen, her eyes darting between the man at the door and me, confusion and fear knitting her brow. That brief flicker of vulnerability pulled at Muho. Had she been all along? "Mom?" I asked again, finding courage in the trembling softness of my voice. She took a step forward but hesitated. "Clara, I don't know what he's going to say," she murmured, her composure failing. "We should listen." That fragile spark of resolve inside me flickered. Could I bear to hear whatever David had come to reveal? What could possibly lie beyond the existing chaos? "Please come in," I said, reluctantly stepping aside to let David enter, an unwelcome guest thrust into the heart of our family home. He crossed the threshold cautiously, dripping water onto the hardwood floor like a harbinger of storms yet to come. "Sarah, you have to understand this is about the circumstances surrounding your husband's death," he began, and with each word, he pawed at the veil of decades, piecing together fragments of a history I had never known. "There are things you've been kept in the dark about, things that could change everything." My mother sank into a nearby chair, cradling her head in her hands, strands of hair falling around her like a curtain. I felt paralyzed, the quiet shattered by David's words igniting the air with tension. The unreality of our situation crashing down around us. Is it true? Did Dad? I swallowed hard, my throat constricted. Did he have secrets? "What do you mean about the way he died?" David hesitated, his brow creasing further, and I saw the pitiful scars of betrayal etched into his very being. "Yes," he finally said, each syllable heavy with the unburdening of years. "He didn't just pass away, it was more complicated than that." I could see my mother's composure crack. A torrent of emotion began to spill from her eyes, each tear a testament to long-buried pain. "You have to understand, Clara, this isn't what you think. There's a lot you don't know." As David filled the silence with revelations, detailing conspiracies that my father had been embroiled in and the choices that led to his untimely death, I felt my reality shift beneath me. I was no longer the observer. I was the child standing in a home that had become a stage for secrets and shadows, the echoes of my past reverberating in new and chilling ways. "But why didn't you tell me?" I found myself shouting, anger pulling on the threads of my fear. I was slipping, and I needed something to hold on to. "All this time, you let me think he was just gone. You could have prepared me for this." My mother's gaze was hollow, ashamed, as she struggled to find her voice. "I was protecting you, Clara. I thought if you didn't know, you could have a normal life, not be burdened by this." Burdened? Their choice, their secrets had kept me on the outside, peering through the glass without a glimpse of what lurked behind it. At that moment, the gravity of the situation began to shift within me, raising questions and doubts I never wanted to confront. Before I could form a response, the doorbell chimed again, this time forcing a collective breath to hitch in alarm. The tension swirled, pulling us taut at the seams as I caught a glimpse of Ryan outside, concern etched across his face. "Clara?" he called out, and I felt a pang of desperation at the sight of the world rushing in around me, breaking through the fragile bubble I'd been enclosed in. "Go to him," my mother urged, her voice barely a whisper, as David's presence loomed behind her. "You need to talk with him." Before a loud crash resonated down the hall coming from the study, its echo ringing in stark contrast to the turmoil unfolding in the kitchen. Fear rippled through me. Had my father's secrets stirred something more sinister into action? My heart raced, a frantic drum against the edges of my mind. What other revelations awaited me in the wreckage of my father's choices? What dark force had my family been fighting to hide, and would it unravel us completely? I braced myself for the storm. Could I weather it, or would I find myself lost in the tempest? With urgency thrumming in my veins, I turned towards my mother and David, my resolve hardening. "Stay here," I commanded softly, though I felt it more as a plea. "Whatever it is, I need to know." I took a breath, squared my shoulders, and stepped toward the unknown, the shadows of my family's past ready to engulf me in the quest for truth. The door opened, and the clarity of my choice hit me like a surge of icy air. The game was only just beginning, and I had no idea the lengths to which I would have to go to face the reality of being a Mitchell. The sound of the door closing behind me was muffled by the roar of emotion swirling in the still air, a tempest that mirrored the turmoil within me. Ryan stood frozen in the doorway, his brow furrowed, eyes scanning my face like a lifeline tossed into a stormy sea. Despite the disarray of my heart, grief tangled intricately with anger and confusion, a small warmth seeped through me at the sight of him, a subtle reminder that amidst the chaos, some threads still felt familiar. "Clara, what happened?" He stepped in cautiously, glancing past me toward the kitchen where my mother and David remained shrouded in shadows, their presence looming ominously. "Everything," I whispered, the weight of the word pressing heavy on my tongue. I brushed past Ryan, nervous energy rolling off my skin, and led him further into the dim light of our living room. The very air buzzed with unspoken truths as I recounted the encounter, a whirlwind of secrets and painful revelations, each one more crushing than the last. He listened, grave and concerned, drawing me into the warmth of his gaze when I faltered. "I don't know why they didn't tell you," he murmured, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "But I do know that whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone." His words were a fragile tether, yet my mind was a million miles away, still reeling from the echoes in the kitchen. I glanced back toward the room where I had left them, where my mother's quiet despair hung like a curtain, thick and suffocating. "There are things I can't unlearn now, Ryan. It's too late." My voice wavered when I spoke, the anger pulling within me, threatening to drown the small flicker of hope I clung to. "Clara, you're not just your father's daughter. You're stronger than you realize." He paused, searching for the right words, but they scattered like leaves before a gust of wind. "Whatever haunted him, it doesn't have to haunt you." I opened my mouth to respond, to unleash the swelling chaos, but an unsettling crash from the study turned our attention. Ryan's body stiffened, and I could see the reality of my family's secrets starting to constrain him as tightly as they had bound me. "Stay here," I ordered, instinct kicking into gear. "I need to check it out." Reluctance flared in his eyes, but he nodded, grasping the intensity that now coursed between us. With tentative steps, I moved away, heart thumping wildly against my chest with each breath I took. The hallway loomed long and dark, elongating the distance between us and whatever awaited. Upon reaching the study door, I hesitated. My breath caught, a knot tightening in my throat. What could I possibly find in that room? Would it be more of the unknown? Or would it be the last remnants of a history that had already begun tearing us apart? Shoving the door ajar, I steeled myself against the cascade of uncertainty. The room was a disaster, books strewn across the floor, papers swirling like birds disturbed from their nests, and the dark oak desk overturned as if it had become the victim of a storm's rage. Light struggled to seep in through the drawn curtains, casting eerie shadows across the debris. "Dad?" I called out, but my voice echoed hollowly, swallowed by the tempest in the room. I stepped inside, careful not to trip over the chaos that littered the floor. It was then I spotted a glimmer of something metallic peeking out from beneath the desktop, the half-broken remains of a coffee cup. It was unremarkable at first glance, yet something about it tugged at the edges of memory. My father had always had a penchant for the peculiar mugs emblazoned with inside jokes, each one a fragment of who he was, who our family had been. I leaned down cautiously, reaching to pull it free, and as I did, there was a sudden thud, a sound so out of place that my heart stuttered in its rhythm. Behind me, the door swung shut with a decisive click, trapping me inside the fading light and danger of my own ignorance. "Clara!" Ryan's voice broke against the door, panic threading through the syllables, and suddenly I was paralyzed by betrayal of the past and the unknown dark forces still shadowing my family, closing in around me. In that moment, I felt the icy tendrils of dread gripping my spine. A flicker of caution warned me as I lifted the cup carefully, revealing a hidden compartment beneath its base, one I had never noticed before. The tension around my heart unfurled, giving way to a growing whisper of hope mixed with fear. What could lie inside? Carrying it gingerly toward me, I managed to pry it open, revealing a series of letters tucked neatly inside, aging and fragile like secrets too long buried. As I read the first line, the world outside faded, eclipsed by words that seemed to pulse with life. Clara, you must know the truth. The implications of the words hit me like a tidal wave, drowning out everything else. But I couldn't comprehend what truth awaited me, nor could I predict how it would shatter everything I thought I understood about my father, about my family. Before I could delve deeper, the door rattled violently against my back, jolting me from my reverie. Ryan's voice was urgent behind it, desperation ringing through. Clara, open the door. Please, let me in. The duality of realization and fear clashed inside of Meth Letter's promised answers, but they also threatened to spiral our lives into irrevocable chaos. And as I held the fragile remnants of our past, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay ahead would be the tipping point in unraveling everything me family, my childhood, and my sanity. In that fateful moment, as the studying rattled against me, a decision crystallized. I would have to face the truth, but the cost would be greater than I could ever expect. Either way, there was no retreat. The only option was forward, into the storm, and I felt myself teetering on the edge of destiny. The moment was thick with unwelcome certainties, as Ryan's voice reached a new level of panic. Clara, please! But I knew, too clearly now, that I was no longer just Clara Mitchell. What would I become when I finally uncovered the truth? The jarring sound of Ryan's pleas echoed against the oppressive silence of the study. My heart churned with an intoxicating blend of dread and resolve, caught in a quicksand of past traumas and urgent choices. My fingers trembled as I clutched the fragile letters, the ink glistening like secrets yearning to be revealed. Clara, please! His voice drifted into a quivering plea, thrusting me back to the present, back to the reality of a closed door separating me from the warmth and safety of his presence. With a deep breath, I forced my eyes back to the stack of letters, each one hinting at truths that could wring out the remnants of solace from my heart. The first one screamed for my attention, the words sparkling with the promise of clarity, but shadowed with the weight of potential devastation. I closed my eyes, thinking back to my father, a man who had carved out a home of laughter and love, but held dark corners I had yet to traverse. Specifically, the inexplicable darkness that had fallen over our family when the sharp rattle of the door snapped my mind back. Clara! His desperate voice carried the weight of his fears, penetrating the fog of my own. Just a moment, I shouted, panic streaking through me as I reminded myself that whatever shadows this place encapsulated, Ryan's light was at the other side. Fueled by urgency, I tore away from my own turmoil and focused on the letters, pouring my heart into the first page. The script was delicate, each stroke carrying a weight of sorrow. Clara, you must know the truth. My breath caught, and I struggled to keep from unraveling. I wasn't ready to face what lay behind each carefully constructed line, but for every thudding heartbeat, I knew that the truth offered something I had desperately sought. Clara! Another round of rapping at the door jolted me anew, but I couldn't allow Ryan's pleas to weaken me. I could feel the air thickening, an unyielding tension embracing the words as they weaved into a story I had been gifted yet never thought to uncover. I steadied myself, inhaling deeply as I tried to silence the tumult within me, focusing on the ink as it transformed into a lifeline. There is something I need to tell you, a burden I can no longer bear. Your father is not who you think he is, and neither am I. I felt cold tremors dance across my skin. The words were like tiny needles prickling at the edges of reality. The things I had accepted, the familial bonds I believed to be unbreakable, were beginning to tremble at the seams. Lost in this web of uncertainty, I instinctively turned, gripping the letters tight, my only connection to the twisting lineage of my family, just as the door rattled again. "You don't have to face this alone, Clara," Ryan said, his voice finally laced with something that could cut through the chaos. Understanding. Desperate, I pressed my back against the door, as if it could keep the storm raging inside me from pouring out. Yet, I could feel the fragile borders between us dissolving, the weight of my secrecy a heavy shroud threatening to consume both of us. "Clara, please. I need to know what's happening." His voice was hoarse now, vibrating with a kind of fear I rarely heard, panic-stricken urgency rumbling through each syllable. I glanced back at the letters, realizing I stood at the precipice of discovery, a treacherous edge overlooking a vast abyss. Could I share my father's secrets with Ryan? Would I be burdening him with the chaos he wanted to protect me from? Eyes flickering to the rain-slicked window, the shadows moving outside seemed to dance mockingly, reflecting my internal struggle. Finally, it made sense. I no longer felt like Clara, this lost girl sometimes swept up in waves of grief. I was a carrier of shadows, and whatever truth I uncovered need not only be mine to bear. With a final surge of courage, I turned toward the locked door, swallowing hard as I decided to bring Ryan into my whirlpool of despair. "I'm going to let you in," I called, my tone steadier than I felt. "But promise me everything changes from here. Whatever it is, I can handle it with you." His response was almost immediate, bolstered by determination. Sliding my hand to the doorknob, I hesitated only for a heartbeat before twisting it open. As the door swung wide, and he stepped into my storm, the letters spilling from my fingers, I sensed that everything I was about to divulge would carry consequences I could hardly imagine. Our eyes locked, his brimming with concern reflected the intensity of the fear swirling through me. "Clara," he breathed, taking a hesitant step inside, "what did you find?" "Something that redefines everything," I said softly, closing my eyes as the confession trembled on my lips like the storm gathering just beyond the window. But before I could speak it, a crumpled letter in my grasp slipped free, fluttering to the ground. Ryan bent to retrieve it, his brow furrowing as recognition flashed in his eyes. You've seen this before?" My heart hammered in my chest, a truth hovering just beyond my reach, tangled with the painful reality of my past. "No, but I think I just became part of something much bigger than either of us can imagine." He handed the letter to me, a shadow flickering across his face, and I suddenly knew that nothing could ever return to its previous state. As I took the letter, a chill of premonition slithered through me, and as I read the first line, my breath caught once again. "You have a brother." This revelation pierced through the fog of uncertainty that consumed me, and everything, the letters, my family's past, even Ryan's steadfast gaze, shifted into something darker. The storm outside crescendoed, and the weight of a new truth settled on my shoulders, heavy and electrifying. Everything was about to change, and the ground beneath our feet had begun to tremble. I never imagined a single coffee cup could unravel a family's dark secret. The words swirled around in my mind like the leaves caught in the tempest outside. An icy chill wrapped around me, numbing my fingers as I crushed the letter in my grasp. "You have a brother." The weight of the statement hung suspended between us, dense and unyielding. Ryan's brow furrowed deeper as he searched my face for answers to questions I could barely articulate myself. My own disbelief echoed in my chest, reverberating off the walls of the study until it felt like the very air around us breathed tension. "Clara," his voice was a whisper, reverent and urgent, "what does this mean? How do you know this?" I gathered my scattered thoughts, wishing for a moment that I could weave a story as seamlessly as the rain fell against the glass. Instead, I felt my heart pounding a frantic rhythm, a tattoo of fear filling every empty space. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling as I tried to conjure memories that felt like shadows slipping through my fingers, "but my father never mentioned, not once." Ryan stepped closer, grounding me as I swayed under the weight of revelations. Maybe he thought it was for the best. Maybe he wanted to protect you. Protect me? I laughed bitterly, a sound laced with disbelief, or protect himself. This changes everything. What other secrets are buried in those letters? What else don't I know? His hands brushed against my arms, a tender anchor as I wrestled with the chaos surging inside me. Then we'll figure it out together. Whatever it takes. The softness in his voice cut through my swirling agony, but the storm within me raged on. The idea that I had a brother sent tremors through my core, unraveling the very fabric of my understanding of family. Who was he? What kind of life had he lived? How could my father have hidden this? A flash of vulnerability ignited in Ryan's eyes, and I saw a familiar warmth flickering against the shadows. Clara, he hesitated, maybe this is a chance to heal, to bring light to what's been buried in darkness. You don't have to partake in this alone. I don't know if I can handle it, Ryan, I confessed, my voice teetering on the brink of despair. What if the truth I find is more painful than I can bear? What if it's something terrible? He stepped even closer, his presence reassuring. Regardless of what it is, we'll face it together. You're not alone in this, I promise. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope strengthen within me, the warmth of his sincerity wrapping around my frayed spirit like a balm. But as quickly as it came, a darker thought clawed its way back into my mind. What if my brother wasn't just another thread in the fabric of my family, but a broken piece of our collective history? The possibility chilled me. Ryan's voice pulled me from the depths of my spiraling thoughts. Let's read more. Find out what else those letters say. As if on cue, a sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, a fierce reminder that outside, life continued oblivious to our turmoil. I picked up the letters again, feeling their coolness against my skin as I sifted through the pages, searching for answers. The one I clutched most tightly, one hinting at an unknown brother, felt like a block of ice in my hands. What if he's someone who has been looking for me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as I envisioned what it could mean confronting a ghost I never knew existed. Well, if that's the case, Ryan replied, determination etched in his features, we'll find him. We'll face him together. A bolt of recognition sparked within me. The simple act of uncovering the truth threw shadows on my righteous anger toward my father, this man I had admired and resented in equal measure. If there was another child, how much of my father's love had been a mere mask for guilt and shame? Clara, Ryan called softly, trying to pull me from my spiral. Focus on the letters. We're on this path now. Let's see where it leads. Gulping down my fears, I forced my trembling hands to open the first letter, the words etched in ink that somehow felt both familiar and foreign. Clara, if you are reading this, it means your father's secrets have finally surfaced. As I read on, the world around me faded. It was just Ryan and me against this swirling storm of truth. My heart raced as I stumbled upon phrases that revealed not only family turmoil, but of betrayals that wove through generations like threads of a cursed tapestry. And just as I started to grasp the threads of my father's choices, the crunch of footsteps echoed outside the study. Glancing through the rain-soaked window, I caught a glimpse of a hooded figure, someone I had never seen before, standing immobile just beyond the threshold of our home, drenched and shrouded in mystery. My heartbeat intensified, a thunderous drum signaling something deeper, an answer, perhaps, or another question that could shatter everything. Clara. Ryan's voice shattered my focus, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the figure, the unsettling familiarity curling in my stomach like a serpent. Someone's outside, I said, my voice quivering as uncertainty wrapped around me again. The looming presence felt significant, like an unread chapter that could shift everything we thought we knew. Stay here, Ryan insisted, his voice a quiet directive layered with concern. As he stepped toward the door, I clutched the letters tightly, my grip tightening around the unknown, knowing full well that whatever lay ahead could change everything once again. The door creaked open, and as the figure stepped into the light of our home, my breath hitched. The shadows revealed a face I had never expected, a face that looked astonishingly like my own. The warmth of the room seemed to vanish as the figure took a step closer, the dim light catching familiar angles in their face that mirrored my own. I felt as if the air was forcefully sucked from my lungs, leaving only a chilling emptiness in its wake. The world around me dulled, and I was acutely aware of the letters still clutched in my hands, their ink secrets now useless against the overwhelming reality standing just beyond the threshold. Clara. The voice was gentle, yet the shock of hearing my name from this stranger, this brother, sent tremors through my core. My mind raced, struggling to reconcile the weight of his presence with the tidal wave of confusion crashing over me. "Who are you?" I managed, my voice thin and unsteady, a flimsy barrier against a storm I couldn't yet comprehend. "I'm Jason," the figure replied, wiping droplets of rain from his brow, his expression a mix of trepidation and hope. "I've been searching for you." "What do you mean?" "Searching for me?" The words slipped from my lips like shards of glass, each syllable a painful reminder of the chaos that had enveloped me just moments earlier. The door hung ajar as Ryan stood behind it, a silent guardian torn between aggression and concern. He studied Jason, a deep furrow wrinkling his brow. Without knowing why, I squeezed Ryan's hand, urging him to remain calm, even as dread pooled in my stomach. "I found the letters," Jason continued, his voice firm, "the ones that led me here. When I read them, I knew it couldn't be a coincidence. I had to come. I had to find you. You should have never come." I shouted, the anguish spilling over in a burst of defensiveness that surprised even me. "Do you know what you're doing? You're only here to disrupt what little stability I have left." Jason's eyes flickered with hurt, but instead of backing down, he took another step forward, bringing with him an undercurrent of familiarity that I found unsettling. "I'm not here to disrupt anything, Clara. I only want to understand. There's so much we don't know about our father, about what he did." The mention of my father sent a jolt through me, and suddenly, the letters I'd just read took on a new weight, each word now echoing with the specter of betrayal. What had my father done? How deep did the scars run? "Your father might have hidden things from you," Jason said, breaking the silence that hung between us like a spider's web. "But he hidden even more from me." Ryan shifted behind me, his presence a steadying force, but also a reminder of the divide that opened between the two of us. Jason was a specter of my father's past, and even now, I wasn't sure where my loyalty lay. "Why did you come here?" Ryan's question cut through the tension, leaving Jason vulnerable under the scrutiny of his gaze. "Because I was tired of running," Jason said, breathless with pent-up emotion. "Because I wanted to know the truth about Dad, about you." His eyes turned to me, imploring, searching. "You deserve to know, Clara. Not everything was okay with him. I know you felt it too." The raw honesty in his words struck a chord deep within me. Memories of whispered arguments and the muffled sobs late at night resurfaced, flickering snapshots of an imperfect past I had long tried to forget. My father had always been a fortress, but every fortress has cracks, flawed and imperfect. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice trembling, hovering on the brink of revelation. "What did you discover?" Jason hesitated, and for a split second, I saw fear cloud his features. I found out he had another family," he whispered, as if the words were cursed. "Another family?" My heart raced, pounding mercilessly against my ribs. "Is that why you've come? To tell me that I'm not the only child left behind?" "Yes," Jason admitted, the weight of his confession hanging heavily in the air. "He didn't want you to know. He thought keeping the truth buried would spare both of us pain, but it didn't, did it?" I interjected, my heart swelling with unspoken anger. "Instead, it crumbled everything I thought I knew." "You're just as lost as I am, aren't you?" "I am," he replied, slowly. "But I thought maybe we could find a way to fix this. Together." Before I could respond, Ryan stepped forward, concern painting his features. "Clara, I think you need to take a breath. This is a lot." But it was too much to just take a breath. The implications of Jason's existence loomed larger than I could have imagined. I had spent years constructing an identity shaped around my father's memory, and now this man stood before me, unraveling everything I held close. Suddenly my phone buzzed, pulling me out of the tightening spiral of emotions. I glanced at the screen, heart sinking as I saw the caller ID of my mother. The icy dread consumed me, a premonition that something was about to shatter the already precarious balance we had barely constructed in this moment. When I answered, my mother's voice came through, shaking yet resolute. "Clara, you need to come home right now. We need to talk. There's something important, something about your father." The room spun, and my breath caught in my throat. What else could possibly unravel from this family saga? Jason's eyes locked onto mine, filled with trepidation yet an unyielding resolve, and I knew at that moment we were just beginning a journey that would lead us deeper into the murky waters of our family secrets. But could we survive the tides that threatened to swallow us whole? The air was thick with anticipation as I hung up the call, my heart hammering against my ribcage. Fear gripped me as I looked once more at the two men standing before Miriam, steadfast and protective, and Jason, a mirror of the past I hadn't known I needed. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on my shoulders, leaving me yearning for clarity amidst the chaos dawning around us. "Clara, what did she say?" Ryan's voice was low, but I could see the urgency etched on his face. "My mother wants me to come home. She said there's something important," I replied, my own voice wavering slightly as the gravity of the situation settled over us like a blanket of dread. "Something about my father." Jason's brow knitted in concern, the traces of brotherly instinct almost palpable. "You should go," he urged gently, his gaze searching mine. "This could be what you need to understand it all to understand him. No," I exclaimed, the tremor in my resolve unmistakable. "I can't just leave. Not now, not after everything we've just learned. I need time to process, to think about all of this." "Clara, you'll regret it if you don't," Ryan pressed, though his tone softened. "You deserve to know the full truth about your past, especially when it threatens the stability you've worked hard to build. You can't keep running from it." "I don't have to run," I said. "This is my home. I finally feel somewhat in control of my life, and then this happens," Ryan interjected, his frustration evident. "What if your mother is about to say something that changes everything? The longer you wait, the harder it'll be, and she may not be so willing to share if you hesitate." Clenching my fists, I felt the tension between wanting to protect my newfound sense of stability and the undeniable pull of family strings tightening around me. I glanced at Jason, whose expression bore both empathy and a hint of urgency that sent a flicker of resolve through my veins. "I'll go back," I conceded, "but I don't want to do it alone. I need you both to come with me. This is bigger than just me now." Jason's face illuminated ever so slightly at my words. "Absolutely. Well, figure it out together," he replied, though I sensed the lingering doubt that hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to break. As we made our way to the car, the world outside felt colder, the city looming with shadows of secrets yet to be unveiled. The journey felt interminable, and my mind raced with possibilities. I had a fleeting moment of nervous laughter amidst the confusion. I wondered if other families grappled with this level of upheaval over one man's lifelong lies. Ryan, sensing my anxiety, reached across the console, squeezing my hand tightly. "Whatever she says, whatever truth you uncover, remember you're not alone in this." The words were a balm for my soul, stirring a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. But how could I reconcile Jason's presence and the years of silence from my mother? I felt unmoored, floating between identity as a daughter to a man I'd barely begun to disentangle from my heart, and a sister to a boy who suffered from the same abandoned legacy. When we arrived, the familiar scent of home washed over me, laced with an anxiety I couldn't quite shake. The door creaked open, and my mother stood at the entryway, her eyes clouded with worry. "Clara," she began, but the wavering in her voice betrayed the weight of unspoken words. "If you have something to tell me, just say it," I urged, clutching Ryan's hand tighter. "I don't want to beat around the bush any longer." Tears glimmered in her eyes, and for a heartbeat, I caught a glimpse of the wounded woman my father had left behind. "I've been keeping something from you, something that you have a right to know." As I stepped closer, the chill in the air intensified, prickling against my skin. "What is it? Is Jason right? Did he have another family?" My mother's silence echoed in the room like a tolling bell, and it felt as though my heart stopped beating in that moment. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but quaking with fear. "Clara, there's more to your father's story than you can imagine. And it's not just about another family, it's about what he was involved in, a betrayal that reaches beyond blood." My stomach twisted at the implications of her words, anticipation crackling like electricity. I could hardly breathe as the pieces began to shift in my mind, jigsaw fragments of truth that stood poised to either plague or set me free. Jason shifted beside me, his expression a fragile balance of fear and hope. Suddenly, the shadow of the past loomed large, unfurling like a phantom stretching its fingers into the present. "Wait, what do you mean?" I pressed, my voice barely above a whisper. "What kind of betrayal?" Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house, startling us all, sending an electric shock through the air. Instinctively, we turned toward the sound, hearts racing, as the very foundation of the world we'd sought to steady began to tremble beneath our feet. "What was that?" Ryan asked, stepping protectively in front of me. I don't know," my mother stammered, her features ghostly pale. "I need to check." As she moved to leave, Jason caught my eye, a new determination stirring. "We need to stay together. Whatever it is, we face it as a family." But even as I nodded, bracing for whatever awaited us, a sense of dread trickled through me. What other secrets lay hidden in the shadows? Would this revelation deepen the rift between us, or would it bind us closer together? The air felt charged with the possibility of everything unraveling further, and I realized we were walking on a precipice, one that threatened to swallow us whole. Would we be able to hold on to one another in the deluge, or would we get lost in the storm that was sure to come? Only time would tell, and as the loud crash reverberated again, I couldn't help but wish for clarity in the chaos. My heart raced as my mother hesitated, caught off guard by this sudden disturbance. The loud crash had shattered the heavy tension that had filled the room until that moment, and uncertainty seeped into our fragile resolve. "Stay here," she ordered, her voice steadying despite the fear reflected in her eyes. I knew, even before the words left her lips, that it was a futile command. We had already been swept into a web of emotional chaos. Staying put felt like an invitation to swallow the silence that had haunted us for so long. "Mom, I'm coming with you," I declared, my grip tightening on Ryan's hand, finding strength in his solid presence. The uncertainty ahead was daunting, but it was nothing compared to the fear of isolation in this moment of turmoil. Jason mirrored my determination. "We'll go together. No one faces this alone." As if echoing our collective resolve, my mother finally nodded, looking grateful yet apprehensive. She led us toward the back of the house, and I felt a strange mix of dread and urgency. When we reached the kitchen, the chaos revealed itself. A coffee cup lay shattered on the floor, porcelain shards glistening like sharp little stars against the hardwood. My eyes scanned the room, landing on the source of the ruckus. Our old family dog, Max, stood there, his tail wagging, oblivious to the emotional tempest brewing around him. If only it were that easy to brush off our problems, I thought, wishing I could be as carefree as he was. "Max, what have you done?" my mother exclaimed with a mix of relief and irritation, crouching down to tend to the mess. But my focus remained elsewhere in the small pile of mail that jutted out from under a kitchen chair, almost like it was trying to hide. "Mom, what's that?" I asked, instinctively reaching for it. She shot me a warning look, but curiosity tugged more insistently than her gaze. As my fingers grazed the edge of the pile, I pulled out a thick envelope, addressed to her in my father's unmistakable handwriting. "Clara, don't," she warned, but it was too late. The weight of the envelope felt heavy in my palm, a channel into the uncharted memories that bound us all. "What if this is part of the truth you were about to tell me?" I pressed, ripping it open before she could snatch it away. The moment I pulled out the contents, old photographs, a tattered newspaper clipping, I felt my heart drop. The images showed my father framed in a series of unsavory circumstances: a protest gone wrong, angry faces, police barricades, and finally, in the backlash, my father standing resolute amidst a crowd. I held up a photograph, my vision blurring as I grappled with the sight of a man I had idealized as my dad, a man far removed from the secrets cloaked beneath our family history. "What is this? What does this mean?" My voice trembled, the questions pouring out like water from a cracked dam. Her expression shifted from vulnerability to an almost palpable despair, and for a moment, I thought I saw the flicker of a long-buried fury. "Clara, please," before she could finish, Jason stepped in. "This is important, Mom. We need to understand." The words were laced with an urgency, urging her to peel back the layers of silence that had shielded us for too long. The crack in her composure slowly widened, and I caught a glimpse of the fierce woman I had never known, a mother forged through trials, yet burdened by past decisions. "There are things that you may not be ready to hear, things that would redefine everything you think you know about him. About us." "Then make me ready," I challenged, feeling an unfamiliar strength surging in my veins. "I want to know the truth. This shadow hanging over us is consuming me." With a deep breath, my mother moved to the table and sat, gesturing for us to join her. We gathered around her, a circle binding us tightly against the impending storm. "The truth is," she began, her voice steady but brittle, "your father was involved in movements that not only backed him into a corner but put all of us at risk. He fought for what he believed in, yes, but he also made choices that led to chaos, choices that put his family in danger. And the coffee cupid represented everything he was running from, the pressures that culminated into a fracture he couldn't fix." I struggled to digest her words. "So, he was chasing ideals, betraying us in the process, like you said?" My stomach twisted. "Not just ideals. He became entrenched in a world filled with betrayal and danger, with people who weren't who they seemed," she said, her voice thick with despair. Jason's expression hardened as he absorbed the weight of her admission. "Was he involved with dangerous people? Was that why he left?" Tears glimmered in my mother's eyes. "I believed he had turned away from that lifestyle. But the truth is, had never fully escaped. And there were forces out there that would never let him go or let us go." As her words hung in the air, my heart weighed heavier, feeling the shadows close and around us. It wasn't just about my father and Marie, it was about a web of choices that had ensnared us all, leaving us vulnerable and exposed. Suddenly, a sharp knock shattered our fragile focus. An unfamiliar voice called from the front door. "Clara! It's me! We need to talk." "Who is that?" Ryan whispered, a fresh wave of anxiety washing over his features. "I don't know," I admitted, the chill from the door seeping into my bones. "Stay here," my mother insisted, but the urgency in her voice fell flat. In that moment, her authority slipped away, replaced by the thrumming tension of uncertainty vibrating through the walls of our world. "It'll go," Jason said, voice steadying despite the tremor in his hands. "No, we all need to stick together," I insisted, drawing strength from the warmth of Ryan beside me. As the knock resounded again, louder, more insistent, I felt time stretch, pregnant with possibilities. My heart raced. each beat accentuating the electricity in the air. The world felt poised on the brink of something monumental, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever truth awaited us behind that door would redefine every single thread of our fading normalcy. Would it be the salvation we sought, or yet another truth that would unravel the tightly wound threads of family and hope? The knock echoed through the silence, jolting us from our tangled web of family secrets, and the fraught atmosphere thickening in the kitchen. Jason's resolve felt fragile as we stood on the precipice of an unknown future, and yet I could sense that whatever awaited us could be a catalyst, a turning point we desperately needed. "Clara, please stay here," my mother urged again, anxiety cracking through her voice. But I felt something awaken inside me, a fierce determination that had been hidden for far too long, ready to cut through the suffocating fear wrapping itself around my family. And oh, I said firmly, no more hiding. We face this together. The words fanned the flicker of courage growing in my chest. Whatever awaited on the other side of that door had the potential to shift the very fabric of our reality. Ryan nodded, glancing between us, grounding me with his unwavering presence. "We're in this as a team," he affirmed, the strength in his voice bolstering my resolve. Jason caught my eye, a silent agreement passing between us amid the brewing chaos. The knock came again, loud and insistent, amplified by the silence that enveloped us. "Clara, I know you're in there. Please." The urgency and desperation laced through the voice came from someone I recognized, a figure from the shadows of my past. "Who is it?" My mother's question vibrated with tense energy, but I could feel my pulse racing at the edge of recognition. Even if it filled me with dread, I pushed forward. "It's Hannah, Clara." There was relief in her voice that cut through my uncertainty. "Please let me in. I need to talk to you about your father." My world tilted again. Hannah was my childhood friend, a shadow from a time when innocence still clung to our lives, untouched by the harsh realities that lay beneath our familial surface. The weight of her words pulled me into the eye of a storm filled with urgency and memories I wasn't ready to face. With a quick glance at the still shadows in the room, I stepped towards the door and turned the knob, taking a steadying breath as I pulled it open. The sight of Hannah hit me like a wave, washing over the remnants of my childhood that had somehow managed to survive the unraveling chaos of my adult life. Her eyes flicked over our gathered group, me mother, Jason, Ryan, but the moment she met my gaze, all the hesitations dissolved. "You need to hear this," she said, urgency lining her voice, fear painted across her features. "It's about your father, and what he was involved in. There are things I've kept hidden for too long." Taking in the tremble of her frame, I immediately felt the barriers between us break down again, just like before. She wasn't a stranger in this moment, she was a link to everything that had been abandoned, and I needed her clarity now as much as she needed mine. "Then tell me," I urged. "I want the truth, all of it." Hannah took a deep breath, her resolve hardening as she stepped inside, each word unraveling with a sense of foreboding. "I've lived in the shadows of your father's choices for years. He was involved with individuals who threatened families like ours. He thought he could protect you by keeping the truth buried, but it didn't work. It never works." Each word reverberated within me, striking chords of recognition that resonated with my own experiences of feelings of fear and uncertainty that had seeped into the very essence of home. "What do you mean?" My voice barely rose above a whisper, the weight of my past hanging heavily on my heart. "They tied him to secrets and betrayals that spilled out in every direction," Hannah explained, her voice choking slightly. "He tried to reach out to me, to understand what he had done, but it was too late. People got hurt, Clara, people that cared for him." "There's more," my mother interjected, her voice strained, as she finally broke her silence and stepped into the fray. "He didn't just abandon this family, I left behind enemies, people who felt betrayed, people who wanted revenge." Suddenly, a cold shiver raced down my spine, and pieces fell into place inside my mind. The secrecy, the carefully constructed silence, it all clashed like waves against the rocky shore of my childhood. "Is that why you kept everything hidden, Mom?" I questioned bitterly, squeezing Ryan's hand tightly. I could hardly trust the very foundations of my family anymore. "Because you were scared?" "Yes," she admitted, tears spilling from her eyes. "And afraid that revealing the truth would put you at risk. I thought if I kept the past buried, it would protect you." But the desperate truth echoed painfully against my heart, feeling as though I were standing at the edge of a precipice. I processed the depth of her fear, yet the burden I carried felt unbearable. The world I knew felt even more fractured. "What if I'm already at risk?" I whispered, voice trembling with anger and hurt. The air grew heavy in the kitchen, thick with tension, as we braced ourselves against a churning storm of revelations. Hannah's eyes darted between us, as if searching for a way to tether us through the chaos. "You need to trust your instincts, Clara. You have to choose the path for yourself. The more you know, the more powerful it will be against those that threaten your peace." Swallowing hard, I glanced at Jason, who stood silently beside me, fear etched on his features, mirroring my own turmoil. "Hannah, if this is so dangerous," I began, but she cut me off. "It is. And it's time to confront the truth together. Whoever does this has to have each other's backs." In that moment, a new conviction ignited within me, a fierce understanding that whatever past my father left behind would not rule my future. "You're right. I won't allow the shadows of our past to haunt us anymore. The truth may sting, but it would release us from the chains of silence and fear. Let's uncover it all," I declared, looking each of them in the eye, a flame rising in my core as I felt the collective resolve swell among us. Together. As I looked around at those I loved, I felt the weight of fear begin to lift, a realization that together we would weave new threads in the tapestry of our lives, the scars of our past transformed into a wellspring of strength. So, as the shadows receded and daylight filtered into the kitchen, it became clear with every step forward, we would uncover the darkness together, and in the act of doing so, we became a family forged in truth. No longer merely the child of a man whose secrets loomed large, I was Clara Mitchell, a sister now bound by blood, by resilience, and a fierce desire for the truths that tangled our lives. I embraced the entanglement, for it was in these trials we would discover who we truly were, freed from the grip of shame, deceit, and silence. And hence, with open hearts, we stepped towards whatever awaited us on the horizon, ready to face our past and reclaim the pieces of ourselves forged in the fires of our shared truth. Together, I breathed, looking into the eyes of my family. A gentle storm thundered outside, a prelude to the transformative journey ahead, where every secret would ultimately lead to profound revelations. And as I stepped into the tempest, a voice whispered through the winds, reassuring yet resolute, "We are stronger than our shadows."